Can you guys see and hear me okay?
Do you know where his bed went?
Sorry. Dog trouble.
Oh.
Did you bring it
In the garage, hanging up on the lap pull down machine. Sorry, the dog bed. We washed it.
Well, how are you guys doing so far today?
Yeah, we're doing good. Well, the day didn't start off that great actually because one of the dogs saw something in the yard.
There you go.
And I went out there and there was a rat.
Oh.
And I thought it'd been poisoned because there were some pest control people came like down the street.
Yeah.
And so I got the garden shovel with the intent to end its misery. And when I got closer, I realized it wasn't poisoned. It had, you know how when you put a lawn down, it sometimes has that sort of nylon string stuff that is on the base of the sod. Well, it got its neck caught in one of those, and it obviously struggled to try and escape, and it tightened around its neck like a noose.
Little thing.
And so I was like, oh shoot.
But you saved the day, didn't you, babe?
So I got some little children's
scissors.
Craft scissors.
Yeah.
Safety scissors.
I got a little towel, like an osoji towel, and I put the towel gently on its tail, stepped on its tail, and that was like I was like a surgeon.
But you got it free.
I did get it free. I was surprised, and it was really tight around its neck, and I don't know if it will survive. I have a feeling it was like that all night. So, but it didn't look injured. It just looked really tired. So obviously. Anyway, sorry about that.
Well. All right. Well, with that then, I really appreciate you guys joining me for a little live Q&A here. I have got a variety of questions that came in advance, so we can go through some of that stuff. If there's any of them you guys feel like skipping over, that is perfectly fine. And we'll go through there. See,
save snails
this
too.
person saves snails. Yeah. I don't really have any snails to save out here. They would dry out. So if you guys don't mind, just giving everybody kind of a brief introduction of yourselves so they kind of know who they're talking to and with if they're not familiar already.
So we have a local karate dojo in Carlsbad, California. And we teach students age 3 to 300, so you're never too old to learn, right? We're still learning. And we also have an international organization called GKC Global. We teach Okinawan Goju-Ryu karate, but when we tour all over the world, visit our branch dojos, and really teach martial arts principles. So.
Yeah. So although people know us, I suppose, if someone knows us, they view us as Goju teachers. When we teach seminars, we might reference some Goju kata or something, but we rarely teach kata unless we have a direct request. And even in our organization, we have people who have nothing to do with Goju, people from different parts of the world. So yeah, so we do have a background in Goju, and most of my personal training has been in Goju with various teachers over the years. But we like to think we're not limited to. In other words, karate is karate, and especially Okinawan karate. It all tends to, after a while, it's overlaps. It's all the same thing, except for Nai Henshin. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Well, it's just sideways Sanshin, right?
For me, I started training. I'm from the UK originally, and I started training with Sensei Paul Coleman, who's still a very active teacher. He's part of a different organization, but he's very active. Has a dojo, teaches internationally. I started with him around about 1979, 80.
He was 3.
Yeah. So. And before that, I did a little bit of kung fu because that was the only. I didn't know anything about martial arts except what I saw on TV, like a lot of people. And it was the kung fu TV series craze. I don't know you're old enough, you know, you remember that, and the Bruce Lee craze and the sort of kung fu Tuesday night movie cinema. You go to the cinema late at night and watch these cheesy kung fu movies. So that was the environment I started in, and I started in kung fu. Did that for a bit, then found a karate dojo, trained concurrently in both styles for a little bit, and then ended up doing Goju. I was in UK for trained there for about 4 or 5 years, and in 1985 I moved to Okinawa to train with Higon Morio Sensei, who is still active and well known. Intended to go there for 3 months just to see what it was all about, and ended up staying in Japan for 3 years. And the only reason I left was because Higon Sensei left too, and I followed him here to the States, and so I ended up here.
Awesome. And quite a few of the questions are about that, or at least about your experiences in Goju and the people that you trained with. So I imagine we'll cover some of that.
Yeah.
So you covered how you got involved in martial arts. One of the things that was asked was how Michelle got involved in martial arts.
I took a martial arts class probably when I was like 18. I think I took 1 or 2 classes, and yeah, it was okay. I really wanted to pursue it. I enjoyed it, but it was difficult socially. And then later I got into Krav Maga and did that for a bit, and then found Goju and trained with obviously Sensei Paul, and trained extensively with Taita Sensei. Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry that it wasn't such a smooth start, but at least it led to something good in the end.
I think for, it just, well, it's kind of awkward to say this, but I went there and...
Well, you don't have to.
I was dating a person at the time. I was very young, and it was like very, like, why would you do that? What are you doing there? And also not. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the guy's name, but I got a little creepy vibe off of the guy too. So I think it was a combination of different things, right? So my immaturity, and then the vibe that I got in the class, probably, because I should have just kept looking. But all good things, come in time, and I've had a really amazing training experience. And for me, and the main reason that drove me to the martial arts was basically I was sick of being afraid all the time. I had 3 small children, and their dad traveled, so I was with the kids by myself a lot. And I was just so terrified that something was going to happen. They were going to be taken, and I was hyper vigilant. I'm a survivor of child abuse, so to me that makes you hyper vigilant, right? And I was just so sick and tired of not feeling safe, and that's what got me to probably Krav Maga, and then to continue my training. I think was just getting over that fear, living a fearful life. When you grow up in a violent home, you have this imprint of imminent violence, and it's going to happen to you at any time. And so, which I probably didn't even realize that at the time when I was seeking out, different, like the Krav Maga and then Goju. But that was my mission. I just said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to kick fear's ass. And and then I just kept, when something would come up, like the competition team came up, right? And I was like, oh, there's a competition team. No way, I'm not doing that. Absolutely not. No. And I was like, oh, shoot, that's fear. I've got to kick fear's ass. And then I would just go shaking. I would go in there just shaking, like, oh, God, what's going to happen today? Like, so, and you just keep facing it day after day. And if you don't face the fear, it gets bigger, right? So it's just a matter of keeping keeping going, training class to class, day to day. Yeah, and it just was a really good fit for me.
Sounds like it. Did that lead you then to your social side of that and your Soroptimist? Is that the right word?
Probably,
involvement?
most likely, yeah. So I became an advocate against sexual assault and domestic violence for the state of California about 6 years ago. So I'm what's called a SART. I go out on when someone's been assaulted, and I am an emergency crisis counselor. So I sit with them through the exam. I give them resources, things like that. What motivated me to do that, however, is after my mom, she was the main abuser in my life. When she passed away, I was literally sitting on my meditation cushion, and I had such a hard time dropping into my practice because I was so angry. I was like, why the heck did all that violence happen? I mean, starting when I was four or five. And why did that happen? There's no reason for that. And I was just left with all this anger. And I thought, I'm not an angry person. That's not who I want to be. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make this mean something in my life. And I literally got up off of my cushion, walked over to my laptop, and typed in, I thought I was going to do mostly domestic violence. The training gives you both domestic violence and sexual assault. I also am a survivor of sexual assault, as are 1 in 3 women. And even more if you identify as female. Violence is terrible. So I went over and I signed up and became an advocate, and that for me was the way that I could transform that kind of suffering that lived in me, so that I can make it something positive. And martial arts was just it gave me the confidence because I didn't give up on it, and it helped with feeling like I could really own this and make a difference and make these things meaningful. And be there for folks when I didn't necessarily have folks there, and how empowering that is for all parties involved. So
I know that it's something that I don't have personal experience with. My own struggles have been very different from that. But at the same time, what I have known about it has been very impressive and inspiring to see the work that you've been doing and going to the UN and being an advocate there and a delegate there. So that's been really cool to see. And I was hoping we could at least talk a little bit about it and get people to be a little more aware and raise awareness of that sort of work that's going on. And spread positivity in general if we can.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. So after I became an advocate, I became a Soroptimist. Soroptimist means best for women. And we have local chapters, but we're also an international organization. So I come from a history, my family were very into social justice in many, many ways. One of my first memories is walking a picket line for the... Oh, that's
Mine
so
too.
Cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, for the farm workers, for Cesar Chavez, and my mom was a labor organizer.
Mine was the Auto Workers Union in Illinois. My dad was treasurer and at some point, I think, chair of the local chapter. I can't remember the details.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. I love that. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to apply and see if I get this delegate position. Well, I went ahead and applied, and I got it, and went to the UN. And when you go to the Commission on Status of Women, people come from all over the world. They have events. What the delegate pass gets you is inside the UN proper, right? So you can go to all those meetings, but you don't even have to be a delegate. You can just go, because they have, I think, between 300 and 400 side event meetings. And you have people from, talking about child marriage, domestic violence, widowhood, which I didn't even know was a thing. People in Africa, India, they get married very, very young. And if their husband decides to leave, there may be no birth certificate records of the children, no marriage certificate if it was communal, and then the wife, if there was a dowry paid, is actually the property of the in-laws. So if the in-laws don't want her or the children, then they're just out on the street and homeless. So yeah, it was a very inspirational and powerful experience, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to do that. I had a lot of help. I had sponsors buying plane tickets, and we have great friends in New York City that we get to stay with them when we go there. So it makes it viable. And when I come back, basically, I did a bunch of live feeds this year. Of course, it was canceled because of COVID-19, but we still met.
Right.
And I'm very much looking forward to going again next year. And then what I do is I go and present and educate to folks here in my local area. I was supposed to present at our big spring conference, but of course that's been canceled as well. So.
Yeah. Well, we're getting some word out anyway, at
Awesome.
least this way. I'll try and keep things a little, karate focused for purposes of this, but I wanted to at least go over some of that work that you do outside of just the martial arts, because that is something that when you're talking about martial arts instructors, yes, you teach martial arts, but at the very least in your capacity as someone who, owns a martial arts school and teaches, you're also a role model to those students, and, people seeing the kinds of things that people do outside of the teaching, I think is beneficial for them to see.
Our vision, sorry, the other dog's barking now. The three-legged one needs to get off the bed and she refuses to get off herself. But our vision for Goju Karate Center is to be a force for good, and our mission is to connect people with our personal power. So we really do strive to instill that in our students, and we do different things for Earth Day, and so yeah, you have to live it. Mm-hmm. Well, you know that.
Absolutely. And that was actually one of my questions anyway, was the kind of mission or goal for your guys' program. So segued right into it.
Oh, Her Royal Highness is calling.
So kind of rolling on from that and kind of circling back around to some more martial arts related questions. Luis David in Mexico had asked, having experienced both Higa Ona's Goju and Patrick McCarthy's material, he wanted to know if you had an opinion on which of those two approaches was harder to teach, at least in our society. And I think that's kind of trying to look at the difference between the sort of Okinawan teaching and the Western teaching.
Well, first of all, we value Patrick McCarthy Hanshi's friendship and mentorship greatly, but we haven't trained extensively in his methods. So
right, just kind of the seminar sessions, right?
We've only done really one seminar, and then we had him come over to our place once. But we've met him in
Australia, yeah,
and been corresponding with him for a long time. And I think what he does is absolutely fantastic. I think what he's created this system which I think everyone covets in a way, because it just deals with everything. And I don't know if you've met him personally, but he's very academic in his approach. When he comes to your dojo to teach anything, it's like a university lecturer coming. He's very eloquent. He really knows his stuff, both physically, historically, and he's got a fantastic program. But I really can't speak as to how it is to teach. I think what he has done, from what I understand, and a lot of our GKC Global members are also KU members too. So we do sort of have some insight. And I think what he's done, he's actually designed a curriculum that is there to learn and to be able to master whatever skills he's trying to teach. But also, he's done all the work for you if you're a teacher. He's created a curriculum. He's got all these two-person drills for whatever it is, whether it's newaza or yaktewaza or striking, whatever it is. And so it's really an amazing program. He's a modern-day master, he really is. But Higa Ona Sensei came up in a different environment, and my main training, the majority of hours of training that I've done is with Higa Ona Sensei. So in that way, all my teachers have influenced me greatly, but just because I was training full time with him for about 6 years, which means almost every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. And I was also lived with him for a year. I got real insight into his personality and his karate, if you like. And the thing about him is you'll just never meet anyone who, well, I'll use the word obsessed because of this is karate obsession.
Perfect.
He is just single-minded in his approach. I'll give you an example. When I've been training in Okinawa, I've been there for about 2 months. And we've trained pretty hard in the UK. And a lot of the people in the UK, a lot of the students there were like street fighters. I mean, everyone was there because they liked to fight. It wasn't sort of like it is now. And Sensei Coleman was, a great technician, but he was also worked as a doorman too. So they're all tough guys. So we trained hard. But when I got to Okinawa, it was just everything was endless. It didn't matter whether you were doing agyuke, ski, shishi, kata, running, whatever it was just endless. And and every couple of weeks he'd have these marathon training sessions where you'd start an evening session. Usually you start around about 6 and it would go to 9 or 10 usually. But this one was essentially an all-nighter. So we started at 6. And this isn't just standing around in the dojo chatting about theory. This is just non-stop kicking, punching, kata, kojundo, whatever. Just non-stop. And at 2 a.m., everyone is totally done, just dragging. So he dismisses everyone. So there were probably 4 or 5 of us at the dojo. And this was the dojo is still at in Okinawa. It's essentially the garage of his mum's house, with his house now. So we got dismissed at 2 a.m. We were all famished, so we went out to find a little noodle place. And so we came back by the dojo on the way home about 3 a.m. Well, he's in there by himself, just continuing his training, just kicking and punching and blah blah blah, just all by himself. So he's just you just never seen anything like it. It's just amazing. But his the curriculum of Goju was essentially Hojundo or Jumbyundo, which is the preparatory exercises, which are they're not really warm-ups. They're specific exercises which are designed to help you with your technique, which also happen to warm you up and develop structure and things. And the Hojundo, which is the traditional weight training, the Shishi, the Kongo Ken, Makiwara, and Kihon, just Kihon in the sense of a lot of standing, punching, moving, punching, kicking, all that kind of stuff. Conditioning, all kinds of conditioning training. And that was kind of the way you did it. You you didn't go in with it, well, okay, I want to learn how to escape from a rear-naked choke or something. There really wasn't a curriculum in that sense. It was just train until you drop. And
right.
It was and it's a kind of spiritual experience in a lot of ways. I mean, you really get to know yourself when you train like that. And so, but that was kind of the way. And then later on, you sort of learn, more about the kata bunka and that kind of stuff. But it's not in the beginning, not in the beginning stages, which you have to do anyway, right? You have to have a foundation. Maybe not to that extent, but that's because of who he was. But essentially, it felt a little bit like you went to his class and you were in it with him. He was, you were there and you tried to keep up.
Yeah, it was happening regardless of whether you were there.
And he did teach things, especially the more you got to know him, he would teach things. But otherwise, it was just you just banging away in the dojo. And I think to some extent, that's what training in Okinawa is like, it initially at least. And not with all teachers, but a lot of the teachers there. And then once they get to know you, you sort of prove yourself, they might start teaching you something, if they have something to teach.
I think another interesting point is what you expected when you went, because Higone Sensei was like this world famous master, and so you would expect the dojo just to be full of people and students, and
Yeah, I mean, the original reason I went to Okinawa was because I've been training for 4 or 5 years, and I really wanted to find out, what's this all about? There's something underlying in this karate, and where do you go? You go to the birthplace, so that's why I went. And but before I went, I'd seen a documentary. It was on the BBC. In England, it was called The Way of the Warrior. I think it might be called something else here. But it was this 8-part series dealing with Japanese and Okinawan martial arts. Actually, it was Asian martial arts. It wasn't only Japanese. I think there was Kalari Payet and other things. But the karate was all Higono Sensei. And the movie was really well done. It was done by a professional BBC documentary team. And in his dojo, there were like tens of people in his dojo, and he seemed to have hundreds of students. So in my mind, I was going to go there and I was going to train and be like the students wall to wall in the dojo, training hard. But when I got there, it was totally opposite. It was like a big class with 3 people. And that was me, maybe another foreigner sometimes, Karuchi Sensei, who followed Higono Sensei around, and Sensei's brother-in-law, who was only really there because he felt he had to be, I think. But yeah, it was amazing to me. It was it was.
If there's only 3 students too, like you can't hide, right? You better be going
right.
full on.
Yeah, and it was a real surprise. It was a real wake-up call because at that time, karate in Okinawa wasn't that popular. It's funny because we have a special guest to our GKC Global Coffee with a Self-Important Sensei series, and we've had a few different people. Last week was Ian Abernathy, and before that was James Pankowicz, and he was saying that
from Dojo Bar in Okinawa, for those of us who may not know him.
And it sounds like there's a bit of a resurgence among the locals now because karate has become quite an important industry there, and whatever you think about karate in the Olympics, some of the couple of the young sort of strapping Okinawan guys and girls have qualified for the Olympic team or possibly qualified. I'm not sure the details. So it's starting to become popular again, which I thought was quite interesting. But when I was there, it wasn't. And one of the funny things was that at that time, Sensei was married to an American. Actually, may still be. I'm not sure if he is or isn't. But
they're not together. But
So and she was an aerobics teacher, and she had an aerobics center in Naha, in sort of downtown Naha. She had hundreds of students, and they were all calling her Sensei. They were all calling, Sensei. She was Higono Sensei, and Sensei, and it was like it's amazing to me that you have this world-famous teacher who is just right at the top there, and he has almost no students, but the sort of aerobics, which was all the rage at that time, was everyone in Okinawa wanted to do that. It was such a sort of dichotomy there. It was interesting. Yeah.
The things that become popular are interesting sometimes. Well, that does kind of get into, and I don't know if this is a topic that you'd want to discuss because I know sometimes these things can be a little bit dicey. But I did get some questions on why he decided to leave his organization and move somewhere else.
Yeah, pass. No.
Yeah. I figured. I figured.
I understand people are interested in these questions, but I think I think the more important aspect of being with a teacher is what you did when you were there with a teacher, what they taught you, and. We can talk all day about this person, why they left this group or that group, but really, I'm not really sure what purpose it serves. So yeah, if we were talking privately and sitting down having a coffee or a beer or something, that's the time to talk about these things, not in a public forum.
Yeah, I figured as much, but since I got several people asking, I figured I'd at least bring it up, and then we can put that to bed.
That, we did go and visit him when we were in Okinawa, and went to his house, and he brought us down into the dojo and started training and told us how he was into nutrition and health, and kind of the things that he was doing. So there is a friendship
Nice.
there, which I think in the end is the important part.
It is. Yeah. It's not so much the official side of things that matters.
Exactly.
But beyond that, there were a number of questions. I know that Steven Sandberg asked, and a couple other people asked about how your experience differed with Taira Sensei, and how that was different from what you'd experienced before. And
so we both spent a lot of time training with Taira, but just with Taira Sensei. But just my earliest experiences. In 1997, I went to Okinawa to train with Miyazato Sensei, and not for any particular purpose other than just to meet the teacher of my most influential teacher. And anyway, I was very impressed with him. I ended up joining his group. And Taira Masaji Sensei, I didn't see him then, but a few years later, I saw him in the dojo. In Jundokan at that time, there were no set classes. And the dojo was open basically from 10 a.m. to 10. And certain cliques of people would come in at different times. And we visited, we were just there all the time, so you'd see this happening. And then I didn't really know who he was, but I saw this guy practicing. It literally blew me away. I mean, I've seen a lot of karate, I've seen all different people, but I'd never seen anything like this. And I was like, what, gee. I mean, I couldn't see how he was doing it, but I knew exactly what he was doing, because he just looked like he was doing Goju Kata, but on a person, and the person wasn't faring very well. And it was real eye opener. And then anyway, I sort of just slowly started joining in with a drill here and there. And then he started traveling more. And I think the first full seminar we did with him outside of Okinawa, which was just training, not seminar, was in actually your neck of the woods. It was in Arizona. It was in it was in.
Oh, really?
Was it Phoenix? There's a nice part of Phoenix. I don't remember the name. I'm sure
Scottsdale?
Yeah, I'm sure there's many nice parts. I just remember Scottsdale.
There are, but when you say the nice part of Phoenix, it's pretty much always Scottsdale.
I did a seminar there, and it was a great seminar, but no one had a clue what the heck he was doing.
It was kind of going over.
It was over. I mean, it was more like a demonstration, isn't it?
But then we started. Then I think, where was it? Idaho or New Jersey? I don't know. Then we just started. Anytime we could go to a seminar, we went to a seminar. And if you're working hard and you're catching on, because it is difficult. If you can keep up and you're getting the drills, then Sensei would teach you. If you went in before the seminar,
Right.
A lot of people sit around and they chit chat, and I remember I would go in and just do kata, and without fail, he would always come over and start helping me with my kata, or do that faster, do this, try that, like, no, move your knees more, do this, he would really, really push you if he saw you were serious and you wanted to train. And he was not one of those teachers that's selfish with the material, but he's not going to waste his time. Kind of the feeling, if you can't keep up, then basically what happened is Paul would end up translating, and then we both would go around and teach, and just help break the drills down,
Right.
because it's a bit complicated. So we had a lot of experience: New Zealand, Australia, several different venues, 2 weeks at a time. East Coast, Canada, Iowa, lots and lots of time, and Okinawa.
And the thing with him was that he's not interested in teaching anyone basics.
No,
He would, in
he'll
fact,
say, go to the Jundokan.
Yeah.
Go learn your kata, your basic kata from Jundokan.
And basics, by the way, is basics isn't standing there punching. Basics is your kata. I mean, essentially everything
Right.
that we should do in Kihon is from the kata, so the kata is the Kihon. And so he had no interest
Right.
in in a general way in teaching people kata or how to do a kishi. Or, you know, you might show it, but until you got to know him. Once you got to know him a lot, he spent a lot of time with Michelle because she wouldn't stand around talking at the beginning of class. She was always like working, so he'd spend a lot of time. And then when we went on seminars, overseas, to New Zealand, Australia, places like that, most of the training we got was outside of the seminar because we'd stay in the same place, you'd sort of talk at night,
right.
You'd share meals together, and so a lot of training went on then.
And he was always developing things, and he's got an amazing mind. I mean, his mind he's like a savant with his karate. So he's always thinking, okay, and he'll, he's a police officer, so he tried these things out. And he would say, oh no, yeah, I used to do that, but it doesn't work because they can do X, Y, or Z. And so here's what I've been developing to counter that, or you know what I mean, like having an answer to each possible scenario.
Right, getting that feedback so that he can better address failure in training and account for that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many questions you got, but it brings up an interesting point because, especially now where everyone's into this practical karate and people are looking less and less to Okinawa really for the practicality of karate, I would think. But Taira Sensei told me, he said that his teacher Miyazato Ichi, he wouldn't so much teach. I mean, there was like standard bunkai, which everyone knew for the kata, which was fairly simplistic because it wasn't a situation where you were pressure testing it. It was only a situation where, okay, if someone's arm is in that position, you can break it like that, or crank their neck this way.
Right. The broad concept of the thing.
Someone bear hugs you, you can do that. What Taira said was, he said that Miyazato would teach different people differently. And at the dojo in the Jundokan dojo, and this is all the way from Miyagi Shojin's time, there were a lot of policemen there. And so if Tai was practicing something, lots of people were practicing, but this is his experience. If he was practicing something with a partner and Miyazato Sensei didn't like the look of it, he'd come over and he'd say, okay, get out of this then. And it didn't work. And so now he has to go and think about how to make it work. He's got the general idea, like you say, but you got to figure it out a little bit more.
And the way he was brought along wasn't like, oh, now you do this. It was like, no, figure it out. So what comes next, yeah. Right? And that's sort of, right. I mean, and that's like after hours when we'd be training, we would be practicing, and you come to those obstacles. So body size, right? That's obvious. Taller to larger, portly, whatever, depending on where the person's strengths and weaknesses are, and accounting for that. And these basics sometimes are just bullshit because they don't work. And there, I think there is a function, and we strongly, we teach basics. We teach moving basics. You need the strength. You need to get the control over your body. But really, if you want something to be practical, you really have to figure it out, and it's different for each person, as being a teacher yourself. So
yeah, and so with Miyazato Sensei, he would teach different people different ways because he knew Taira and other people were in law enforcement. He knew that what they did had to work. But if someone worked in a bank, he wouldn't. He said, "Oh, very nice."
They do gripping. They do McGiddy training.
Yeah, well, hey, gotta hold on to that money.
And whether you agree with that method or not, you look at people like Taira who came out of that environment, who just made just amazing strides in practical karate. It really is. Yeah. He's very unique. I think anyone who's seen him realizes he's pretty unique in karate, not just Goju.
Absolutely. And that's something that does that one of the questions that was brought up was, kind of tying into that, includes why is so much bunkai out there useless, which was kind of mentioned as well. But beyond that, Stephen or Stefan, I think it's Stefan Sandberg, asked what the most common mistakes are that you see with karate practitioners trying to come up with applications for their kata. From your perspective, of course, obviously everybody's going to have a different view on it.
Off the top of my head, I think the biggest problem, if there is a problem, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being creative, obviously, but the biggest issue I see is that it's whatever someone is doing, if it's not coming from the fundamental principles of their style, like from a deep understanding of their kihon, then essentially you're just waving your hands around. But when you practice, like when you first learn a kata and you haven't trained very long, that's what you're doing. You're waving your arms and legs around and moving your body through space. And everything starts at the extremity. Oh, my hand has to go there, my foot has to go there. No, I'm here. But later on, everything comes from internally, if you like. You're moving from the inside, not from the inside out, not the outside in. And so, once you have that, you can. It doesn't really matter that much what your hands and feet are doing. If you understand that. So I think the biggest thing that I see is, if you do a style of karate or anything, there's a fundamental principle to physical movement, and each style will have, it might have a different way to prepare you for the fundamentals, but in the end, you're all heading in the same direction. So I think, the biggest thing is stick to your fundamentals and work from that. And then if you get stuck a little bit in your training, go back to your fundamentals and see if you can figure out from there. The first thing to do isn't to go on YouTube and look at someone else trying to do it. Which happens a lot.
If you're from a traditional style, you're going to find the answers in your kata, right? Look at the preceding movement, the movement after, what's the transition telling you to do? It's not just the end movement.
Right.
It's, okay, how did we get there, right?
It's all that stuff in between. Yeah, I know that's something that I see a lot too, is that the focus on what that end position looks like, regardless of everything else around it, what that end position is doing.
Yeah. And through basics, your basics are advanced training, okay? Your basics are always going to be advanced training if you are in the correct mind. The way that you do a block when you started, or whatever you want to call it, a block or strike, some people don't differentiate between the two, which is understandable, but the way that you're executing those and what's going on internally is much different. And when a relatively newer person comes into the dojo and you go through 45 minutes of basics, they're exhausted, and by this time we should be pretty efficient at it. So we're learning how to make the movements smaller, more refined, and more effective, right?
Yeah, and my sensei Richard liked to say that there aren't really advanced techniques so much as you are just doing basic things in an advanced way. And it was something that the more that you trained in doing those things, the more value you would get out of them, and the more use you could pull out of that material just by exploring what 100%. It does.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, everything kind of comes together in the end. I know that people look at the stuff that I do and don't think it looks very Shorin-Ryu.
Oh, are you Shorin-Ryu? I thought you were Goju now.
I'm a secret Goju guy. Didn't you know? All 4 Goju kata that I do. But even when they looked at what my instructor did, they didn't necessarily think it looked like the Shorin-Ryu that they expected to see. It was always softer, and it had more flow, and it had more circular movements than linear movements that they expected. And but he was also one of those people who brought these things in from different systems that he learned and kind of found the common ground in them so that they all made sense. And so, while I do see that there are differentiations in style and how they approach different things and their kind of themes and concepts that they like to emphasize more and focus on in different orders and things like that. Overall, there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, I agree.
There's martial principles.
Yeah.
Exactly. You said it exactly. And how you're approaching that. And in the end, you can only do so many things with a joint that moves like this and a joint that moves like that and a joint that moves like this, right? So.
Yeah. And I saw a comment that Hunchy Perry, which I assume they're referring to Doug Perry, recently said something to that effect as well. And he was a big influence too on my instructor as well. He's one of the people from the Shorin-Con that just is sort of an outlier in everything.
Oh, okay.
So if you get the chance, he's somebody to kind of look into and talk to. He's a very interesting character.
I met him years
in
ago
addition to
at
his
a,
karate.
Tournament. I don't remember where it was, and I didn't really know where he was, but what happened? I think he was teaching a seminar there at the big tournament somewhere, and at that time I was very insular in Goju. I didn't even know there was too much other karate, even though I saw at tournament things. I didn't have that much interest at that time. But yeah, I sat down with him and talked with him. He's a really interesting guy. And then his son,
Jason.
He's come into the dojo a couple of times, and he's a lovely guy. And a couple of years ago, he came and worked out with us. It was fantastic. Real nice guy. Yeah, nice family.
Absolutely. You should ask him about his Seiunchin sometime, because he does a version of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, we're all secret Goju guys. That's all it is. But we are getting close to the end of the time limit that Instagram gives me. And so I figured we could kind of wrap it up with one of those, general questions. It's always a wrap-up question of just kind of what sort of advice you guys would give to anybody who is either, starting out in martial arts or interested in teaching or interested in learning more about the deeper aspects of things. Any sort of advice that you'd like to share with anybody?
Well,
it's the big question, too.
I was asked this question recently in another interview, and I think the thing about when you're starting out is that really you have to trust your teacher, right? I mean, you're there to learn, and so you're there to trust your teacher to teach you whatever martial art it is they're supposed to be teaching, and so you have to trust in them. But also, I assume we're talking about adults here who are starting out, is you also have to evaluate. You may not be able to evaluate their karate because you're so new. You can for sure evaluate them as a human being. And that's important because you need to, I would say it is advisable to find a teacher who is a mature, not abusive, doesn't abuse their students, isn't sort of narcissistic, and someone who is there to help you, not someone to perform for their students, if that makes sense.
And make sure they wear Crocs, right, Michael Clark?
Obviously.
You wee man in Scotland.
If you don't see a bunch of Crocs on the shoe racks, don't
It's the secret.
Yeah, so I think for people starting out, what choice do you have but to trust in your teacher?
The other thing, though, the point, if you're starting out in building a new dojo, right? Hopefully, you're with a teacher that's going to support you and guide you through that process, and be there in times of crisis. We're very fortunate with our international organization. As soon as we saw what was coming, we said, hey, let's hop on Zoom. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk about this. Let's join forces. And so straight away, we joined forces. We helped, and our folks helped us and we helped them. So now we have this collaboration. So we're doing Kabuto weapons seminars and our students, all of anyone who's a GKC Global member can join in any of our classes. And so they can jump on Zoom and they can be there, right there with us. And then we've had other folks who had established dojos, and they're like, hey, if your juniors want extra classes, here's our Zoom link. Let's reciprocate here. And you really find out kind of what your organization, it's a defining moment, I think. And to have our people come together, and you know, on the East Coast, we happened to be in the East Coast just before we got back, and we met some wonderful folks, and we're seeing a lot of them in our classes. But also, one of the young men over there is doing these challenges, and so is one of our guys in the UK and in Newcastle. So you know, we just say, hey, let's do this. And so we're doing, you know, some of the things. It's when you have an organization that's healthy, and I'm not just talking karate, but any organization, you know, it's not just the folks that are running the thing, right? It's all the members together.
Right.
That's what's going to make you strong, and that's what's going to carry you through.
Yeah, one of our guys, one of the guys
Absolutely.
in who you guys already know, Chris Denwood Sensei, who's also GKC Global, who's
Yes.
one of the best Shorin-Ryu guys in the world, I think. But yeah. So
I agree.
so you know, he's part of this, and he just got a really fantastic award from his community for keeping things going and providing a service, you know, during this difficult time. So. You looking for that?
Yeah, I was just looking for it. It's really exciting. They were awarded, according to their national statistics and attrition rate figures, it turns out that his ESKK Martial Arts and Fitness has been one of the most successful in the country to adapt through recent COVID-19 restrictions. And yeah, he and his wife run the fitness and martial arts, so they were awarded, and very well deserved. He's just a wonderful human being and martial artist, and as you, I'm sure, are aware, author.
Yeah, and yes. I don't know how much time I have, but getting the thing about the teaching bit is that before Michelle came in on the scene, I was very, well, I wasn't very skillful at training teachers too much, because I thought, and the way I was, well, you know, you have to wait to black belt to be a teacher, but karate training in most dojos doesn't necessarily prepare anyone to be a teacher. If you want to be a teacher, there's so much information out there, and we have instructor training programs now which start whenever we see a spark in someone, basically. It can be after a year. It doesn't have to be after. It could even be after a few months. It doesn't have to be after someone gets a black belt. I think that's the biggest mistake that people make as far as teaching is you're not qualified to be a teacher just because you have a high rank. And teaching is a skill unto itself, and educate yourself. You know, find out. There's so much information out there. You'll be so much more effective teacher if you educate yourself how to teach
and communicate
in
a positive way, right?
Absolutely. The dojo that I started in Illinois actually had a program like that, where if it looked like you were the type of person who was already like trying to help people figure things out, and you might be interested in teaching, they'd foster that in you, and they'd help you learn how to do that better, and they'd give you more opportunities, and they had special classes for learning how to teach, essentially. And I thought that was a really good program that they had that I know I benefited from. That kind of took me from being a barely passed a speech class in high school to doing a presentation in front of a school of 800 students and faculty just like 2 years later.
So that's fantastic. The number one fear in folks is public speaking, right? And so even getting a child up, or an adult for that matter, in front of a class and just counting is huge. So we break it down to the basic bare bones. We have a lesson plan template. We have a curriculum template that can be used for any style, rotating curriculum. So you're making sure that you're getting in everything that you need to in a year, 4 times, 4 times. And it's just keeping organized like that. I think it helps your instructors and it helps your students to stay focused and strong. And I would also say to know why you're doing it. What is your mission? You know, it's not just to kick and punch and be a badass and beat people up. You know, that's why I mean, it took years for us to come up with our vision, which is to be a force for good, and our mission, connecting people with their personal power. So we make it a point, and we hope, you know, maybe some of the folks watching out there will join us. We missed Earth Day, but we're going to circle back around. We do just an in-house little tournament competition day for 2 days. It's $10 to come to class. If you don't have the $10, that's fine, because other people will scholarship you. We don't turn people away. Okay. Every single dollar we make for that goes to the National Forest, and they plant a tree. $1 plants one tree. Last year we planted 804 trees, and the years before that it was 300,
awesome.
200. So we're shooting for 1,000 this year. So we're going to have a delayed Earth Day. But I encourage everyone to be, you know, global citizens as well, and that's part of being a karateka, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Well, with that, it is going to probably cut us off in about 2 minutes. So we've filled our time pretty well. But I again, really just appreciate you guys joining me for this and just kind of having a bit of a chat, answering people's questions and some of my questions, and sharing a little bit about what you guys do. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for I really appreciate you having us and inviting us, and you know, we really appreciate what you do out there too, bringing a sane voice to the martial art world and the world in general. So that's not always easy to find, and you know, we really appreciate you and believe in what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it says 4 seconds, so